All right, guys, this is a big one. This is a big, big, big week for the Lion Within Us. I'm so excited for us here as we get started. And guys, for every episode of the Lion Within Us, you know how we're going to start? I mean, it's not even a question. We're going to start by looking at God's word. And God's word this week, we're on Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Reading out of God's word right here. Fathers, do not provoke your children as anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Guys had a big spiritual kickoff on this scripture rather, and really broke that down and gave some insight to what this means. Because too many guys just stop at the discipline part of this scripture and they don't think about the instruction of the Lord. So I really unpacked what that looks like, how we can start applying that in our lives. And guys, I pray that spiritual kickoff was just that kickoff that you needed in your pants to get your butt in gear and get up there and start being the lion within. Start unleashing that guy, right? So we're going to be talking about today on this episode. We're going to be talking about turning sons to men. I got to guess. I can't believe, again, sometimes at the Lion Within Us, I have to pinch myself on the men we're able to connect with because the messages that they can bring are so powerful. And this is one of them. So we're bringing to you today, Ryan Michler. Now, he is the founder of the Order of Man movement. Now, Ryan, just a phenomenal guy, big time podcaster. He's been podcasting for 7 or 8 years. He hosts the Order of Man. If you do not listen to the Order of Man, you need to add that to your regimen. This is one that I listen to every week. I only have a few podcasts I listen to every week. I'll go through those in probably another episode. I learn a lot from Ryan. He's a phenomenal podcaster, just a great man. And guys, we're going to learn a lot here. He's going to unpack so much about being man and what that actually looks like. Ryan is not one short of opinion, so I'm so excited for him to share his wisdom, his insight. Check out the show notes. We'll have ways that you can sync up with Ryan. He's pretty big on social media. It's these types of conversations that are going to make us better. They're going to challenge us. I get it. They're going to make us think. They're going to really make us sit back and reflect. How are we doing as husbands? How's we doing as fathers? But that's what the Lion Within Us is all about. Guys, it's not about just being comfortable. Anybody can be comfortable. It's in the friction where the change happens. And that's usually where the great things happen. All right, so I'm not going to hold them back from you any longer. So get ready. Here we go. Ryan Michler, welcome to the Lion Within Us. How you doing today, my friend?
What's up, Chris? Good to see you, man. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
I guarantee you haven't been looking forward to it as much as I have, man. So I've been excited about it. Been talking to a lot of my buddies about, you know what? When I told them I was actually like talking to Ryan Michler, like, there's no way. I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, like, it's gonna be hot. So, man, I gave an intro, Ryan, but not all our listeners may not know about the Order of Men. So, and the intros are just me talking. I love to hear the guest himself to lay it out. So, would you mind just kind of give a brief, how you got to where you're at and what you're trying to do with Order of Men?
Yeah, I started the podcast. It originally started as a podcast about 7 years ago, and I did it for selfish reasons. Really, my goal was to be able to have conversations with incredible men who I was motivated by, inspired by, and led by. And so I reached out to a couple of guys, and from day one, I actually had another podcast. A lot of people don't know that. I had another podcast before Order of Man. And I found out very quickly I loved the medium of podcasting and to be able to have conversations like this with high caliber men and the technology we can use. I just didn't want to have the same drawn out conversation I was having regarding financial planning, which is my background. Did that for about a decade almost. And so I realized I love the medium of podcasting, but I wanted to shift gears. And when I started the Order of Man podcast, it really, really took off. And I didn't expect that. Even as you were saying, you were talking to your buddies and like, no way you're having him on. That sounds so foreign and strange to me because I really don't consider myself to be anything special or unique, just a guy trying to figure it out. And and that's how we've always presented Order of Man. It's not Order of Ryan. It's not I'm better than you. It's, hey, like let's create a brotherhood. Let's have some camaraderie. Let's have some accountability. Let's hold each other's feet to the fire. And if I can help foster and facilitate that for other men and they rekindle romantic relationships, they start leading their children better, they start businesses or secure promotions or get in shape or whatever their ambitions are. And I was a little bit of a catalyst for that through the guests that I interview, then, man, I'm all about it.
Right. And I tell you what, I mean, in week in and week out, and guys, go to the show notes because we'll make sure we sync up everything that you connect with Ryan. Because I mean, I learn something every week from your interviews to your Ask Me Anything to your Friday field notes, man. I feel like every week you're challenging me from a man, just in different areas, and I love how diverse your topics and your guests are, and just your structure, and that's why I'm excited today because we're talking about turning sons to men. And Ryan, you don't know it, but I'm a 3-time girl dad. Okay. And this November
That's a
we're
tall
expecting,
order.
well, it is, bro, but this November we're expecting a son. So,
Awesome. Congrats.
so we're looking forward to that. So I'm trying to learn, particularly from men like yourself, on how to lead that young man. I mean, it's all on me. I got to step up and be a man and show him how to do that. And I think people like you, if I can learn from it, that's what it's all about. So maybe talk to the guys out there. How do you teach? I know you're big on protect, provide, preside. As men, how can we start doing that to our sons?
Well, I think the first answer is start with yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
at this point, I feel like that's a bit of a cop out. It's easy to say, be an example. But the reason everybody says it is because there's so much truth in it.
Right.
And there's such a discrepancy between what we believe about ourselves or how we view ourselves ideally and the way we're actually showing up. And so
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we need to continue to say, be an example. And look, when I say be an example, I'm not just talking to you. I'm not just talking to the people who are listening. I'm talking to myself. I
Mm-hmm.
fall short in so many ways every day. Screw up, I mess up, I fall short. And so when I say be an example, that's a reminder for me too that I need to be an example and I need to show up in a powerful way for my boys and my girls. So we're exactly the opposite of you. I have 3 boys and 1 daughter.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, we're exactly the opposite. And boys and girls are different. They are. They're naturally different.
Yeah.
My sons are more inclined to take risks. They're more physically aggressive. They're louder. My daughter, by nature, is more nurturing. She really wants to be like her mother, my wife, and she wants to make sure that everybody's okay. She's a bit of a peacekeeper, and
Right.
that's a natural order of things. And I love it. So I think Jordan Peterson actually sums this up really, really well. He said something several months ago, and it resonated with me. He says, our job is to help our children do dangerous things safely.
Right.
And we don't allow that enough in society, but I think that especially rings true with our boys, is
Mm.
allowing them to go out and to explore and take risks and climb trees and get into fights and do these things, but in an environment where it's not going to hurt them or injure them permanently. There's going
Mm-hmm.
to be some consequences for sure.
Right.
And so I try to do that with my boys. I try to give them opportunities where, they can get themselves into a little trouble. They can get themselves into a little bit of a pickle, and not so much that it'll impact them forever, but enough where they'll feel the sting of it and they might think twice about the way in which they go about those behaviors. But really, for boys, it's about harnessing all of that masculinity, that raw testosterone that's coursing through their veins, and then
Mm-hmm.
helping them channel aggression, dominance, stoicism, uh, propensity for violence, risk taking into productive outcomes for themselves and other people. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's my job as a father. And I think if more fathers did that, we'd live in a completely different society than we do today.
Oh, absolutely, hands down. And I'm so glad you went to Peterson, man. I'm a big Peterson fan. I actually got to see him speak a few months ago here in North Carolina, and I
Mm.
think that one of that rules is like don't mess with a kid when they're skateboarding. Like
Yeah, I think that's just from his first book. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you want them to do those dangerous things, but you also want to to give them that space to learn and be creative and to make those mistakes, to be a leader, because you can't lead until you actually have led in the past and make those mistakes and you learn. And I think too many times that we're in a society now where moms and dads, we just try to mow down everything for our kids. And man, that's not going to teach them and get them to be where they need to be.
We live in a pretty amazing society, a pretty amazing time to be alive. It's always interesting when people say, I was born 100 years too late or 200 years too late, and they
Right.
romanticize what it would have looked like in, the early West or
Right.
something, or,
Right.
or medieval times or the Dark Ages. I'm
Yep.
like, I don't know if I'd want to live through that, but we romanticize it because we see it in Hollywood and it looks great and everything else. But man, those were some really, really dark, dangerous, disgusting times. And in a lot of ways, there are some dark times that we have in society now, and that I'm sure we'll have moving forward. But we live in an incredibly prosperous age, and it comes with advantages and it comes with disadvantages. The advantages are we have technology like this, where you and I can have conversations. You're in North Carolina, I'm in
Yep.
Maine, so we're hundreds, if not thousands, of miles apart, and it's as seamless as it can be. We have access to the internet. The amount of information that we have at our disposal is incredible. I just had a shoulder surgery, actually a pec surgery more specifically, uh, 5 days ago. I'm not dead,
Right.
and it's repaired. And the medical, this was crazy. When I went into the operating room, one anesthesiologist said to the other, "Hey, are you ready?" And she said, "Yes, I'm ready." And that's literally the last thing I remembered. And I woke
Right.
up 2 hours later in the recovery room, like what happened, and I didn't have any pain or nothing. Like medical technology and advancement is incredible. Like we live in this incredible prosperous time, but also it's lulled us into a false sense of security. And
Yeah.
our biggest concern is that the guy at McDonald's put mustard on our hamburger when we didn't want mustard,
Right.
or some dumbass on the road cut us off, and who knows what they were dealing with. And like those are our biggest concerns. Or I
Yeah.
got laid off from my job because the economy, and so now I need to get a new job. Or instead of costing $80 to fill up the truck, it now costs $100 to fill up the truck. Well, congratulations, you got to pay $20 extra, but your ancestors were literally starving to death.
Yeah.
When they wanted to get from the East Coast to the West Coast, it took them years
Yeah.
to get to, and people died because
Yeah.
of that travel. It's a blessing and a curse, and we ought to be aware of where we stand within our humanity, the existence of humanity, and realize that we need to put ourselves in situations that are going to be challenging. I think about the gym is a great example.
Okay.
The gym's a funny thing.
Right. Yeah. Why do we need it? Right.
Why do we manufacture these perfectly air conditioned, climate controlled, beautiful buildings with precisely balanced bars and weights? Why do we do that? Because life isn't hard enough. Like you're not
Right.
chopping wood, you're
Right.
not hunting all day, you're not breaking down a lion or a deer in order to feed yourself. You're not trying to use a bow drill to start a fire. You're not doing those things. So we have to manufacture that shit so that we can make it harder than life really is, and it's just not all that hard.
Right. It's incredible when you think about it, man. Because it's like you're right. Back in the day, you think about some of the strongest guys. I grew up in the country, and some of the strongest guys I remember, being beside were farm boys because we grew.
Farm strong, man.
That's it, man. You don't mess with farm strong, man, because those guys will take you out.
Did you grow up in North Carolina, or where'd you grow up?
Yeah, it's Southern Virginia, but right on North Carolina line. So a lot of tobacco farms in this part of the world. Yes, sir.
I moved from Southern California, Anaheim area, to a very, very small town in Southern Utah when I was 13, 14 years old. In fact, the high school I would have went to in California had more kids in the high school than the entire population of Parowan, Utah, which is where I moved to.
Okay.
And when I started playing football I played when I was in seventh and eighth grade, and then when I moved to Utah, I played as a freshman. I started playing football, and there was a couple of teams that were rivals, but they were notorious for being strong. It was like Milford and Kanab, and these guys are all farm boys. They're moving pipe, they're hauling hay, they're throwing hay all summer long. They come into football, and it's like these are like men. These are grown men,
right?
And then
right.
you have to go and play them as a 16-year-old kid in high school, and it just wasn't even. It didn't even seem fair. But man, we've lost a lot of that. We really, really have.
We have, man. We definitely have. When you thinking about, all right, we got sons, we're trying to get them there. We have all these things the world's throwing at them. How do your tactics change? You said you got three sons. I think your oldest, Brex, he's got that podcast, so he's your oldest. But how does it vary from your ages on the tactics that we need to as fathers to be raising these young boys to be men?
Yeah, I mean, Brecken is my oldest. He's 14 years old. And he's very much like me. He's a clone of me minus the beard at this point. But other than
Yeah,
that, he's actually more fit than I was. He's bigger and more fit than I was when I was 14. And I attribute that partially to what I've implemented in his life and other people that I've introduced him to that I didn't have when I was a young man growing up. My mother raised me on her own, and she did a great job. But there was some deficiency there.
right.
Not anything ill intent towards her at all. It's just she's a woman, and a
Yep.
woman can't fully raise a young man into a man. So he does have an advantage that way. And then I've got my second son is almost 11, and then I've got my third son who's our youngest, and he's 6.
Okay.
So the tactics don't really change all that much. I am very involved with my oldest because of his age and his ability to do things and hang, if you will. And their personalities are all different too. We
Uh-huh.
have to remember that the personalities are different. My youngest son is a little tornado.
Okay.
It was funny. We had his uncle, so that's my brother-in-law, over this past week, and uh, he for whatever reason he started calling him Furious George. I guess one day he was sitting there and he just had his underwear on and he was eating a banana, and my brother-in-law, his uncle, called him Furious George.
Nice.
And that was such a good that was such a good name for him. And even, we started calling him that, and he gets so mad when you say that. And he's like just a little terror. He just gets mad and he'll bite and scratch and punch and do whatever he can. It's different. My oldest is not like that at all. He's very relaxed. He's not very confrontational. He's not
Right.
passive, but he's not confrontational. He's more of a pleaser, I would say.
Right.
My second son is more introverted. He's content
Okay.
with spending time alone and doing his thing and working on his projects. Very smart, very intelligent. Doesn't need to be around people. Doesn't need to be in the mix. Just does his own thing. And then we have
Yeah.
Furious George, who's just a little terror. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I wish I could tell you, oh, just do X, Y, and Z. Man, I'm figuring it out just like anybody else. But what I would say is I allow all of them to be boys. And
Right.
when I see behavior that I think is positive, or maybe not even positive, like let's say, for example, Furious George decides to fight his older brother, I might not say that's a positive behavior, but I'm going to let it play out
Right.
within reason.
Right.
And when he gets his butt kicked because he's going up against 11-year-old, then, okay, well, what do we learn
Right.
from that lesson? Either
Right.
you should not pick on 11-year-olds, or maybe you should learn to fight. And
That's r-
so we let them be boys, and
yeah.
then we try to temper that and harness that into a productive outcome. It's not very tactical. It's more 30,000-foot view. I just don't have the answer on what is
No.
the perfect formula.
No, but I think it's spot on. I can't remember if it was a fun Friday that you had, not a fun Friday, a Friday field notes, or our Fridays are fun Fridays. That's how I got that mixed up. But you
Yeah.
said something about you looked out the window and it was your son and your daughter, and I think one of them pushed the other, and you kind of let it play out. They were in the garden, and it played out. And your message to your daughter was, look, you got to stand up for yourself and your son. But you didn't go out there and immediately stop that, and you took that as an opportunity to teach them. And I think there's so many dads out there that would have just jumped out right immediately and stopped it versus letting this stuff play out. And I think that helps our sons and our daughters at the same time grow and mature and understand the different personalities.
Well, there was no immediate threat,
Right.
right? And
Right.
that's what we need to understand is that if it's not going to be an imminent threat to our children's lives, maybe let them work through
Mm,
it a little bit. And that's
hmm.
not to say turn it into some real world scenario of Lord of the Flies,
Right.
but because at some point you should step in and you should start to communicate with them about what happened and how it played out, and the way that it went and how it could have went better and what you might have done. That's your job as a parent.
Right.
But
Right.
also give them enough rope to hang themselves a little. Not so much that
Yeah.
they'll strangle themselves,
Right.
but just enough to hang themselves. And then you can start talking about the lessons that were learned.
Good point. Good
And
point.
there's lessons on both parts, in that example. And I don't remember that exact scenario that you're addressing, but yeah, my daughter needs to learn to defend herself.
Mm-hmm.
She's a woman. She's probably at some point, I hate to say, going to come into some encounter where she's intimidated or threatened or maybe
Mm-hmm.
even in a vulnerable position. So she should learn. She should learn how to take care of herself. My son, yeah, he needs to learn how to treat women and how to respect just people in general.
Right.
And if he gets popped in the nose and he deserved it, then I'm going to celebrate with my daughter in front of him and say, good job.
Right.
And then I'm going to say, well, if you're going to step up to the plate, you better learn how to fight because you called it. Now you're going to deal with the consequences of it.
That's right. That's right. There's so much to be said there. Hey, we'll take a quick break and we'll jump right back. Think about the amount of emails you guys get in a day. Now, how many of those are junk? If your inbox is like mine, it gets hammered with items that do not serve me, and I'm constantly pruning it down. To combat the darkness that consumes it, we want to partner with you and bring some light. So join the Lion's Den to be part of our community and get positivity delivered to you directly. We're working hard to bring encouragement, inspiration, and tips to help you be the leader you're predestined to be. As part of the Lion's Den, you'll also be first in line with new opportunities, events, and resources that are designed to serve you in your journey. So hop over to thelionwithin.us and sign up for the Lion's Den today. It's free. That's thelionwithin.us and become a the Lion's Den today. So Ryan, one thing I want to get your input on, man, is from raising men. Let's boil this down to the church because I want to get your insight here because I want to understand. First of all, can we have strong men and sons in the church, and what can we do to get more guys in? Because I'll give you some context. I serve in our church. I'm a deacon there, and too many times I see the moms bring the kids, or their sons, or the sons are just checked out and dad's not there. What do we need to be doing different, and maybe to actually foster masculinity and to start building these strong men in the church and in the faith.
Yeah, so when you say the church, I'm just going to assume for the sake of argument you're talking about all sorts of denominations and religions and everything else. Okay, so is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. Yes, sir.
I mean, we're talking about Christianity, but when you say the church, there's all sorts of denominations. So let's just clear the air right there. All
exactly.
Right. The problem with the church, if we're going to use that term, again, to broadly talk about all Christian religions, frankly,
yes, sir,
is that they're overly feminized.
Yep.
And even more so, they're becoming increasingly ran by women. Like there's women pastors and all of this kind of stuff. That's very strange. That's a strange concept to me. And even if they aren't in some sort of leadership type position, they have a lot of pull within the church. They have a lot of a say. They're the ones who speak up. They're the ones who speak out. And frankly, the church is catered towards a feminine perspective. And that's the problem. That's the problem. I'll give you an example. This is anecdotal. Years ago, I have been very active with the young men in our church. And this was years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. We took probably 6 young men between the ages of 14 to 16 years old on a camp out one evening. And it was an overnight camp out. And we drove about an hour north from where we were. And we started at the trailhead and we hiked down into the canyon and the valley. And that took us about 4 or 5 hours to hike down. And we made camp. And then the plan was the next morning we're going to hike out. And then we were going to stay one more night at a member's cabin that was in the area.
Okay.
And so we take the 4 or 5 hour hike down and we come before about 2 hours into it, we come to this little watering hole. And the boys are like, hey, can we jump in? Like, yeah, absolutely. And they did a little cliff diving and they jumped in and, they were running around and having fun. They all stripped down to their underwear and they were doing their thing. It was a great time. The boys get out, they dry off, we go on a hike, and we come back down, and they say, hey, Brother Mickler, what time is bedtime? Now, these are 14 to 16-year-old boys, and I said, I don't know. Well, what time do you guys want to go to bed? They're like, well, we don't know. What's our curfew? I said, you don't have a curfew. There's no curfew here.
Mm.
But what I will tell you is that we're waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're having a quick breakfast, and we're going to the bathroom, and then we're hiking because
Right.
we got another 5 or 6 hour hike. And they said, well, okay, so what time should we go to bed? I'm like, no, you make that decision.
Right.
And those boys stayed up all day. In fact, all night, excuse me. They went down to the stream. One thing they did is they went down to the stream and they caught a frog. And while I was sleeping, they put that frog in my bed. I was sleeping under the stars. I didn't bring a tent because I didn't want to carry the weight. But they put that frog in my sleeping bag, which was funny, and I appreciated it. Even though I was tired, I appreciated the joke. And I said, "You guys better get some sleep." Like, no, we're okay. I'm like, all right, whatever. They stayed up probably till 4 or 5 in the morning.
Ooh, wow.
Down. It was me and another leader with them, and they were at the stream, and they were doing who knows what they were doing. And 6 o'clock rolls around, my alarm goes off. I wake up, kick their sleeping bags, I kick their tent. I'm like, let's go, boys. They're like, can we sleep another hour? I said, no. I told you. We were leaving at 6 o'clock. Yeah, but we stayed up all night. I said, that was your choice, not mine. You knew to get your butts up. Let's go. And they got up grudgingly, and we made breakfast, and we headed out. We had a great week. So we get back home, and the unofficial motto of the trip was do what you want, but suffer the consequences.
Okay.
That was there was a different motto, but that's what we decided. The official motto was I will find a way or make one, but the unofficial motto was do what you want, but suffer the consequences, because I told them that. And we get home, and I had a couple of mothers reach out to me. And they said, I can't believe you let those boys stay up and blah, 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 blah. I said, you know what? Don't lecture me. You're a woman, and I appreciate and respect that, but you're their mother. You entrusted those boys with me. We had a great time. They're happy. They're fulfilled. They have some stories. They did something hard. They did something challenging. So don't you lecture me about the way that I lead those young men.
Right.
If you have an issue with that, then don't send them. But they're with me, and I will take care of them, and I will protect them, and I will lead them. But this is what they needed. But this underscores the problem. You have women in society lecturing men about how to be men and how to raise boys. And I love women. I love my wife. I love my mother. I love my mother-in-law. I love the women that I interact with. I love my daughter. I love women, and I love femininity. But I'll be damned if I can't be a masculine presence in the lives of the boys I'm here to serve, whether that's in a church organization or within my family or coaching youth sports. And there's no woman who's going to tell me how to turn a boy into a man, because they can't do it.
Right.
But that's the problem with the church, is that the church wants men to act more like women. Mm-hmm. And then you have all of these weak, cowardly, pathetic, feminized men acting like women. And then you wonder why enrollment in the church is down. Because men don't want to be lectured to by women. Men don't want to sit there and be preached at for hours upon hours at a time. You know what we want to do? We want to go shoot guns, and we want to fight, and we want to be physically active, and we want to compete against each other. And society has made that wrong. It's not wrong.
Right.
It actually can be very wholesome if we do it in controlled environments with very specific, clear-oriented outcomes. And so if I'm a member of the church, what I'm telling men and you as a deacon is, hey, guys, Sunday we're going to go to church, and we're going to worship, and we're going to pray, and we're going to get on our knees, and we're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to learn. But Tuesday night, we're going to jiu-jitsu together.
Right.
Wednesday night, we're going to the shooting range. Thursday evening, we got a pickup game of basketball at the local high school that we reserve for Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. and I expect all of you to be there. We're going to open with a prayer. We're going to have a quick spiritual lesson, and then we're going to beat the shit out of each other for an hour and a half. And then we're going to close with a prayer, and we're going to go home better men.
Right.
And if the church learned to do that outside of Sunday sermons,
yeah,
it would be a completely different faith.
Yes.
And much better, much more wholesome, much more well-rounded, and much more advantageous, not only for women, but for men. And by the way, the women will be served by men acting like men.
Yes. What about Sunday morning? I mean, like, is there anything, if you're leading a church, what could you do on a Sunday morning to make it more attractive, to pull into the more masculine areas, to get the guys more engaged? Is there anything to do, or is that too far gone? You're thinking of programs outside.
I don't think it's too far gone. One of the most spiritual moments I ever had is I was in Iraq from 2005 to 2006, and we had every Sunday this makeshift building. It was an Iraqi detention center. They used to hold prisoners and whatever in this area that we had made our base. And we had this really, really rudimentary, almost Adobe type building that every Sunday we met in. And we all walked in there with our body armor and firearms. All of us had M16s or M4s. We all had body armor. We had helmets on, and we'd walk in there. And the first thing we did is at the door, we'd take our rifles and we'd set them down under the pew so we could get at them if we needed them, but they were under the pew. And one of the most spiritual moments I ever had in my entire life was in a congregation in Iraq with probably 50 to 60 other guys, all with our rifles between our legs under the pew, sitting there in body armor, sweating our balls off, and we were singing hymns as men. No women.
Right.
There's no women there. It was all men, and we were singing praise to God.
Right.
And I'm telling you, man, that was the most spiritual moment, I don't want to deny some other moments I've had, but one of the most spiritual moments I've ever had in my life, because it was men singing praises to God. And there's something about our voice. Like, think about leadership, right? I believe it's a man's job to lead, to preside.
Right.
Think about the way that we've evolved, even just physiologically. Our voices are deeper. They're louder. When my daughter speaks, she's like a little pipsqueak.
Right.
She doesn't have the ability to project her voice the way a man has the ability to project his voice. And when you have 50, 60 guys who are all voluntarily deciding to be there at church, singing praises to God while a weapon of war and destruction sitting between their legs under the pew, ready to act at any moment in body armor, shoulder to shoulder, brother to brother in a common cause. Man, you want to get the guys together on a Sunday? Maybe say, hey, if church starts at 9 o'clock Sunday morning, hey guys, we're getting together at 8:30. We're going to be here at 8:30. Maybe the chapel's open. Maybe you guys meet out in the parking lot. Maybe there's a separate room you can meet at, and you do a scripture, but it's a manly scripture.
Yeah.
Right? Like about battle. Like the Bible has all sorts of battles and guys who were like strong and bold, and they were fighting lions like Daniel, facing off against lions. Like, that's what you choose. That's the scripture you choose. And you talk about the story of that. And then you sing a strong battle hymn.
Right. Right.
And you get in the spirit and you get in the mood. And then you go to Sunday and your wife's there and she looks beautiful because she's got her Sunday dress and she's got her heels and she looks amazing. And you've got your kids and your daughters have, the bows in their hair and their dresses look so beautiful and they're so just so lovely to look at. And you've got your son who will be there and he's got his little bow tie on and his vest. And you see your family, but then you realize, oh, I'm the man. I'm the man of the family. Like, it's my job to be the man. And everything else that comes into who you are, in that moment of a Sunday sermon, is all filtered through the lens of you having 10, 20, 30 other guys who you just talked about fighting freaking lions with, contending with the devil, battling for what's right and against what's wrong. And all of that is filtered through that lens. That's a beautiful way to start a Sunday.
Man, that's powerful right there. And I must admit, I'm not surprised that you said worship, that was an area I can only imagine that scene in Iraq where you guys are together. And this is where I think the church, Ryan, we could step up, we could do differently, because too many times we're singing songs like Jesus is our boyfriend. That's just not the case, man. We got to change it up. And like you said, worship to this is the God of the universe. I mean, this is our Savior. And I tell you what, he's not kissing us on our nose and patting us on our butts and call us a skittle and a snowflake and all these things. Like we've completely missed the mark. So that's great advice, man. I thank you for sharing that.
I saw a meme or something the other day, and it resonated so loudly with me. It says, Jesus wasn't a hippie. He was a warrior.
Yeah.
Man, he stood up. Jesus died. Like, he died for what he believed in.
Right.
He wasn't singing praises of equality and happiness for everybody. No, he was like, no, this is the truth. And if you're offended, that's on you, but this is the truth.
Right.
And he believed it so much so that he said, I will die for this. And he did. He suffered immense pain that we can't even imagine.
Right.
Because of what he believed in. That's not hippie shit.
That's right.
Warrior stuff right there.
That is. It's warrior. And we forget that. I mean, that's why the Lion Within Us, we talk about the lion, because it's I get it. He's fully lamb, but he's also fully lion. And we want to make sure guys lean into that. And I tell you what, I learned so much just from you right here. I'm pumped up about what we could be doing differently in our churches, man. So thank you for that.
Well, look, there's always a duality, right? You can't really have a lamb. I'm just speaking figuratively. If you don't have a lion.
Right.
And you can't really have a lion if you don't have the lamb.
That's right.
Right. And sometimes us as men, we're only lions. We're aggressive and we're violent and we're dominant and we're physical. Okay, well, that's not what we're after.
Right.
We need to have the lamb as well within us, right? Which says that we can be physical. Yes, we can be dominant. We can be controlling. We can be violent when necessary. But even violence, why do we do it? If I was walking down the street and I saw a young, attractive woman, and I thought, well, she'll make an easy prey, and I'll either violate her or steal something from her, and I went and I violently attacked that woman and got what I wanted, I think we could all agree that would not be an effective use of my masculinity, right?
Right.
But if, on the other hand, I saw somebody else doing something to that young woman and I decided to go up and defend her,
right,
and protect her, or even maybe put a bullet between that guy's eyes because of what he was doing, I think most of us would agree that was an effective use of masculinity. Right. But it wasn't just violence. It was actually mercy.
Right.
It was actually compassion. I didn't have to put myself in that scenario. I could have turned my eyes. I could have averted that. I could have walked down another street. I could have pretended like I didn't see anything. But I did because I loved another human being enough to put myself in a dangerous situation.
Right.
That's the lion and the lamb.
Yeah.
We need both, man. And you can't have one without the other.
No. They run together. Absolutely.
Well, another example is I spent some time a couple of weeks ago in Hawaii. I was on the island of Molokai, and every year I go to Hawaii and I shoot and hunt axis deer out there. And there's roughly, from the last numbers I heard, about 70,000 axis deer on the island of Molokai. And the locals hate them. They hate the axis deer. Okay. And on the big island, the locals hate the goats.
Yeah.
And these are lambs, right? Mm-hmm. Axis deer, goats, like, they're not predators, they're prey.
Right.
So why do the islanders hate them? Well, they hate them because they eat all the vegetation. They consume all the resources. The goats eat so much vegetation that when it rains, it erodes the dirt because the dirt has nothing to cling to, the roots of the plants that they've eaten, and it all goes into the sea and it ruins the coral reefs. So the locals hate them. Mm. I was at last year, I went to a Subway after a successful goat hunt, and I had my hunting stuff on. I think I was probably a little bloody from a a goat that I had killed out there. And I was in Subway and I saw this woman, and she seemed, my assumption is that she was local. And she turned to me and she says, "Have you guys been hunting?" And I'm like, "Oh, here we go. She's going to be mad at me." And I said, "Yes, we've been hunting. I was hunting goats." She's like, "Kill all of them." And I was like, "Oh, why?" And she told me about this, like
Right.
how they're eroding the coral reefs and messing with the ecosystem and all this kind of stuff. And these are animals, the goats, the sheep, the axis deer, pigs. These are animals that have no predator. Like there's the 70,000 axis deer on the island of Molokai have no predator to balance out the ecosystem, except for
Yeah.
us, right? As hunters,
Right.
we go and we're the predator. There is a natural order to things. And
Yes.
when we mess with the natural order and we all become lambs or
Right.
axis deer or sheep, it's a
Right.
problem. If we
Yes.
all become predators, it's a problem because then we have nothing to eat, right? We need both. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Amen. Absolutely. Bro, that was awesome. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Is your daily routine setting you up for success or failure? Each day is an opportunity to improve, and it starts with solid habits. We created a guide that outlines 9 powerful habits that will strengthen the physical, mental, and spiritual areas of your life. To get your free guide, check out the link in the show notes or hop over to thelionwithin.us/habits. That's thelionwithin.us/habits, and start creating the habits you need to be the leader you're predestined to be. So Ryan, I want to shift on you, man, because we've been talking about church, and that's great. We're still talking about raising men, but now I want to talk about education. This is something I've learned a lot from you recently. You even had a guest on recently. You guys talk about alternative education and things like that. I know you homeschool your children, and your wife leads that. Maybe give some advice for our guys out there. What can we need to be doing to help educate our sons to live and see and understand what actual truth is?
Well, they need to be surrounded by truth, and you're really just not going to find that in government schooling.
Okay.
Government schooling has been corrupted. And I'm not saying it's all bad. It's not. There's a lot of great teachers I had. There's a lot of great public school coaches that I had that really added value to my life. And I don't think I would be the same person if I didn't have those people in my life. But the reality is that the government schooling system is broken and
Mm-hmm.
it's compromised and it's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous to the well being of our young children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we made the decision about 3 years ago. This was about a year and a half pre-COVID to take our kids out of the government schooling system and to educate our children at home. And I don't say school our children at home. More accurately, we educate our children at home, which
Right.
means that we have a curriculum that we follow and we teach them what they need to learn about reading and writing and math and history and all these kind of things. But it's done under our supervision, and we are looking for opportunities and ways to serve them based on their unique gifts, their unique talents, their behaviors, their
Mm-hmm.
personalities. And so, an example would be my daughter. We didn't know this, but she's dyslexic. So,
Okay.
when we began to teach her how to read, it was very frustrating for her, of course, and also for my wife and I, because, like, just read it, just look at the
Right.
letters, like, here, like, just read it.
Right. Right.
And she said the letters move around on it. So she said, move around on
Okay.
it. And she can't read it right. And she's smart enough that in the government schooling system, she probably could have sat in the back and she probably could have faked her way through it and gotten through and been just fine through the program, but not really even learned how to read effectively. Uh, and I noticed one day she was reading a book, quote unquote, reading a book to me, and it was like verbatim. I'm like, man, she's got this. And then I looked at her eyes. She really wasn't reading the letters. She was just looking at the picture. She had memorized like a
Oh.
poem. She had memorized it. She was just reciting a poem. She
Yep.
wasn't reading, she was reciting something she had memorized. So we spent some time looking around at other programs and things that were available for children who are dyslexic. And we found a couple of great programs and we purchased those programs. And, it's not perfect, of course, because this is a learning challenge that she'll have. But we were able to spot that and do something about it because of it. But then there's
Right.
also days where I remember the first day they homeschooled. very first day, my wife is responsible for 99.8% of the homeschooling stuff.
Right.
Because I'm working. I work out of the house. This office is in my house. Kids are downstairs. My wife is there with them. They're on summer break right now. But the very first day they homeschool, two experiences I'll never forget. They go for a walk outside. We've got 50 acres. And the loop they go, if it's just a manicured loop, not into the woods that we own, but just a manicured loop, is exactly 1 mile. And they get back, and I will go downstairs, and I said, "How was your walk?" And they said, "Look at what we found." And they had this frog, and it was in a little container that my wife had poked some holes in, and frog. I said, "Oh, that's an awesome frog." And they're like, "Dad, it's not a frog, it's a toad." And I'm like, "Okay, what's the difference?" They're like, "Well, actually," and they had printed out the difference between a frog and a toad.
Yeah.
And I don't exactly remember what the difference is, but they could tell you. They could tell you exactly what the difference is and why that was indeed a toad and not a frog. And I said, "Got it. This is cool."
Yeah.
Like, they're taking real world experiences and they're applying and they're learning and they're growing. Later that day, it was probably around noon. My wife comes upstairs into my office and she knocks on the door, and I wasn't on a call. So she comes in and she says, "Hey, we're done with schooling." And I said, "Oh, cool. So you guys are going to take a lunch break and then get back to it?" She's like, "No, we're done for the day." And I'm like, "What? How can that be? Like, you guys have only been going for like 2 or 3 hours." She's like, "Yeah, this is all they had to do." And I'm like, "No, this has got to be wrong." And it wasn't wrong. What I
Okay.
realized is that the government schooling system is so inflated, so bloated, and
Right.
filled with bullshit and nonsense and recess and transferring from class to class and assemblies and red tape and bureaucracy, that what takes the government school system 6 to 7 to 8 hours per day actually takes a normal person 2 to 3 hours
Yeah.
per day.
That pace is different.
It's
Right.
it's not even the pace maybe, or just not pace. I wouldn't say is just effectiveness.
Okay. Okay.
We could cram what the school district would take 6 or 7 or 8 hours into 2 or 3 hours. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's so simple. And
Right.
parents will say, "Well, I'm not qualified." You are definitely qualified. You're more qualified than a school teacher is. And school teachers, the honest ones will admit that's true. The dishonest ones, they're so arrogant and egotistical that they think, well, because I have a degree or because I spent tens of thousands of dollars on this degree, that I'm better than you. You're not better than me as a parent. I have 4 kids. You have 30 you need to deal with. I have 4 that I need to deal with. I know them intimately. I spend every waking hour with my children. I know what their issues are. You don't. And I'm not beating up school teachers who are trying to do the right thing, because I know there's a lot of kids out there who are really struggling, who don't have opportunities like my kids do. But does that mean that I'm required to put my children through an inferior program because other people have to deal with that situation? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm their father. I'm going to give them every opportunity that I possibly can to set them up for success. And I'm
Right.
equally, if not more qualified than any school teacher out there to be able to teach my kids about reading, about
Yeah.
history, about math. All I have to do is read a freaking book. That's all the teacher did. Teachers
That's right.
are pretty qualified in navigating bureaucracy, navigating red tape, working with classrooms full of 25 to 30 to 40 children. That's not my situation. I
Right.
don't have to deal with the bureaucracy. I don't have to deal with the red tape. I don't have 40 kids in my class. We have 4. So
Yeah.
I don't need those qualifications. What I need is to be able to read a book and to be able to share the information from the curriculum. And there's a lot of great curriculums out there. And so I wish more people would homeschool their kids. And I wish more people would stop complaining about and saying, well, we don't have time. We don't have money. We're not qualified. No, you are. That's not to say it's not going to take sacrifice. It really, really is. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes with it. Well, our
Yeah.
kids need to be socialized. You know where my kids are right now? They're at the lake in swimming programs with 10 other kids. You know where they're
Right.
going after that? To their friend's house, because my wife has a doctor's appointment. She's going to be she's got to go out of town. I'm going to be here working, and my kids are with their friends, peers. Like
Right.
school hardly has the monopoly on socialization for children. There's all sorts
Right.
of excuses that just aren't legitimate excuses at all.
Right. Right. I mean, you're all over, and I'm trying to think now through for guys like myself. Like that is our goal. We want to get to the homeschool situation, and we're trying to get finances. Line up everything that we can do that. For the meantime, when they're in that curriculum, what is there anything we can do to really speak truth or to try to help correct when we see things are going wrong? Any advice for the guys that they're trying to get there, but in the meantime, steps they should take?
I mean, it's hard because, frankly, they're getting, if your kids are in the public school system, how old are your kids?
12 and 10.
Okay. But I thought you had three boys.
Oh, well, then 3 girls, so 12, 10, and
Oh,
then 10 months.
sorry.
Yeah, then 10
10-month-old
months.
girl.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
yes.
Okay, so she's
big,
not in the school system.
yeah, big gap there. So our
That is a
ultimate
big gap.
goal, the 10-month-old and our son, we're homeschooling. My wife and I, we've already said, we're definitely going to be making that transition, but we're trying to figure out for our girls now they're going into 7th and 5th grade. Man, what can I do? I mean, they're in a pretty good conservative school. They're teaching some pretty good things. So it's not traditional public school system, but still, I want to make sure that I can do what I can, and other dads out there listening, to speak truth.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I just wanted to clarify there. So
Yep.
what I would say is you need to become a louder voice to the best that you can than their peers and their school teachers, because their school teachers, even in a conservative schooling environment, are not entirely accurate, and they're not teaching them truth. I just know that to be true.
Sure.
And it's not because they're bad people. I don't think school teachers are the overwhelming majority. Some are, yes. Some of them are evil. Some of them are corrupt. Some of them are just nasty. But I don't believe that's the overwhelming representation of school teachers. I take more issue with the system than I do with the individual teacher.
Right.
But they are hamstringed by curriculum that they need to teach. They are hamstringed by certain ideologies that permeate the school districts and the classrooms and schools in which they operate.
Yeah.
So the problem is they're spending 6 to 7 to 8 hours there in the schooling environment. How many hours are you spending with them? 3 tops?
Right.
You wake up in the morning, maybe you spend 30, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, maybe at max before they go to school. And then they come home. They get home at, let's say, 4 or 5 o'clock. You have dinner together. Hopefully you're having dinner together. If you're not, then that's out the window. But let's say you spend an hour at dinner and then another couple of hours of, maybe most people just have their kids watch TV or play video games.
Yeah.
Or it's like, hey, go over and spend time with your friends. And so they go from school to hang out with their friends. And you're spending like 2 hours a day with your kid.
Yeah.
How's that going to work?
Yeah. That time investment. Yeah. Time's where it's at.
So what men need to do if they are not in the position to have their kids at home just yet, I'll be working towards that, is you need to make yourself more present in their lives. So that might mean that you guys, instead of waking up at 6 o'clock, you actually get up at 5 o'clock every morning and you do a quick workout together. Might just be a 20-minute workout, might be a 30-minute workout. And you actually, instead of just having dinner together, you actually have breakfast together.
Yes.
Hey, what are you going to do today? How are you going to show up? Who are you going to stand up for? What if somebody says something you don't agree with? How are you going to handle that situation? You start working through these scenarios, and just like I know, because you being a Christian understand the concept of the armor of God.
Yes.
You help these children put on their armor for the day, because they're going to have to go to battle.
Right.
They really are. They're going to have to go to battle with their emotions, with the way they're being manipulated, with their intelligence, with their brain. They're going to have to go to battle, and you need to be able to equip them to be able to stand the test when it comes. And then when they get home, it's, no, you're not going immediately to play with your friends. We're going to go for a walk tonight.
Right.
And then we're going to sit down for an hour at dinner, and I'm going to ask you about your day. I'm going to say, what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? Tomorrow, what do you wish you would have done differently? What are you going to do differently? How are you going to behave? How are you going to show up? Who are you going to stand up for? Tell me about your friends. Who do you like? Who don't you like? Why do you like them? What's their best characteristic? What's their worst characteristic? What if they ask you to do something that you know to be wrong? What are you going to do in that situation? And these are the questions and the conversations you should be having with your kids. And then they go play. Like, let them go play, of course. And they go play with their friends for an hour, and they come home and then you sit down with them at night and you tuck them into bed and you read them a wholesome book or you read from the Bible and you sing a song. You sing a song to them while they go to sleep and you pray with them.
Right.
These are all things that we could do a lot better of. And I'm telling you, if you spend that 2 to 3 to 4 hours per day in wholesome activities with your children, it
Right.
will arm them with the power and the strength and the faith they need to be able to navigate the 7 to 8 hours of
Yes.
indoctrination.
You're all over it. And that's why I'm pretty big on like family devotion, speaking time, but time, just time. Kids spell love Time. I'm convinced of that, man. And like on our way to school, I drive them the carpool in the mornings. Like we pray together, and I literally pray a hedge protection around them because I want to protect them from that indoctrination and from the false, the mis. And then I'm really big on inspecting what they're being taught, and I don't mind challenging the teachers and having those confrontational conversations, but still, we're not just going to, hide behind a rock here. So, man, I'm thankful you walked us through that. My wife is actually homeschooled. Her and her 4 siblings, they were all homeschooled. So
that's better. She knows.
Yeah, she knows. She knows she's got that foundation, and there's also a stigma with homeschool, and I'm just trying to debunk that. So anytime we can talk about it, I want to talk about it. And I think how you called it, like an alternative education, I believe is what you called one of your recent
home-based education.
Home-based education. I mean, that's awesome. Great stuff.
The other thing that I would say, well, it's good that your wife is on board. That's very important because a lot of times I'll hear from men who want to do it, but their wife's not fully on board, and that obviously can be a real challenge. But another thing that I would suggest with your children, and I hear this a lot, is like, man, I'd love to spend more time with my kids, but after school, they've got so many extracurricular activities. They've got football, or for you, it's dance and cheerleading maybe, or piano or whatever.
Softball, volleyball, man.
Softball, volleyball. So your sports team. Yeah.
Yep.
And so what I would say is, okay, so you want to spend time with your kids, but you want them to be involved in the sports because sports are great. Go coach their freaking team.
That's right.
And then I'll hear guys are like, well, I don't know anything about softball. Bro, she's 10.
That's right,
she's not competing at the collegiate level. You don't know enough about running the bases. You don't know enough about throwing a softball or a baseball. Look, just go to the head coach and say, hey, coach, hey, I appreciate what you do for my daughter and the rest of the girls here. Look, I'm not an expert. I would love to be able to contribute in some way. And that coach is going to be ecstatic because I'm telling you, the amount of people who volunteer is minimal. It's minimal. And that coach is going to be like, what? We actually have a dad who wants to contribute? Yep. And maybe you don't run specific plays and you're not like, if we're talking about football, for example, like the defensive coordinator.
Right.
Okay, but you're telling me you can't run base drills. Right. You're telling me you can't run conditioning. You're telling me you can't teach them the fundamentals of fielding a ground ball. I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist here. Like, get over yourself and get your ass in the game. And don't tell me you don't have time to spend. That coach would love nothing more than to have a fully engaged present father. And by the way, if we're talking about girls or boys, it doesn't matter. You might actually be, if you're a coach, might be the only male fixture in that young woman or that young boy's life. You might be the only one.
That's right.
And so do your job, not just within your family, but your community as well.
Man, powerful stuff. And I'm big on coaching, Ryan. That's something I think we need to have more guys do. I coach basketball, volleyball, softball, whatever they play, I'm coaching. I didn't know anything about volleyball, awesome. But volleyball, we're just hitting the ball. So I'll figure it out, right? Just go with it, man.
You'll figure it out. Just being there and just saying, hey, do better.
That's right.
Hey, work harder. Hey, you know what? Yeah, you failed. Get up. Let's go. Be a team player. Everybody knows that. I don't know anything about volleyball plays or I don't know anything about that. But I could be there and I could coach in some regard for sure.
That's right. That's right. Well, Ryan, I know we're running up against the time, man. We call it feeding time on the line within us. Just a quick fire round, just a couple questions. You got time for that?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, man. But what's your favorite thing about being a dad?
I actually like the challenge of it. When I'm challenged with new scenarios or my oldest son as he gets older where he's like, looks at me in a way that I kind of want to punch him between the eyes, or
Right.
it's the challenge of it is exciting for me, and I'm like, okay, how do I navigate these waters? The newness of it all,
Nice.
the challenge of it all. We've got Furious George, and I'm like, I never had one of these before. What do I do here? I love that. I love that part of it. I really do.
I hear you. What's the least favorite thing about being a dad?
Um, Man, that's a tough question. That's like a loaded question. Look, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I was always born to be a dad. I've really kind of always been an old soul.
Okay.
Like, there's nothing I don't enjoy. I mean, sometimes I'd like to maybe be a little bit more selfish for myself and my wife.
Right.
I would like to travel with my wife a little bit more, for
R-
sure. But
Right.
those sacrifices are small in comparison to the benefits we receive.
Very cool. What do you wish you would have learned sooner about fatherhood than you did?
Um, I wish I would have known that it's okay not to be perfect. I thought a father had to be perfect and had it all figured out and just
Sure.
be perfect in the eyes of his children. And what I've realized now is that it's okay to mess up, and it's actually okay to own it with your children. I've actually individually apologized to my children at times for the way I've reacted, or the way I've responded, or the way I've conducted myself. And I found that when I do that, it garners a lot more respect than I thought it would. I thought it would undermine my credibility. It actually bolstered it.
Nice. What's a new habit that you want to create with one of your sons this year? Or maybe you're trying to help them create.
My second son, I'd like to spend more time with him. His personality is so different than mine, and he's into different things than I am.
Okay.
He's into web design, graphic design. He loves robotics, engineering. Those aren't
Cool.
necessarily big concerns of mine. I'd rather be outside and hunt and do jujitsu. My oldest son's all about that, so it's very easy with my oldest son. It's very
Right.
easy. But I would like to get more involved in robotics. I even think he loves battle bots. If you're familiar with battle
Oh
bots,
yeah. Yeah, man.
is maybe creating a battle bot, or some sort of robots
Yeah.
that perform a function with him. I think doing something like that with my second would be really, really cool.
Nice. Nice. Last question, Ryan. What's one thing you hope the men out there that are listening to this conversation remember from today?
I look. I just don't want men to abdicate the responsibility, and we do so often.
Okay.
We ship our kids out to public school, and we think that they're going to come back perfect little angels. We hope that another coach is going to be able to teach them what they need to know, that they're going to learn what they need to know. It's like, you can't outsource that. You can
Right.
enlist, and we should. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you need to do it all on your own. You should
Right.
enlist the help of other men
Right.
in raising your children, and women in raising your children, whether it's through the church or sports, school, or whatever. We should enlist other people, but you can't outsource the responsibility of it. It's your responsibility.
Yes,
So
sir.
find a way to be more involved, more present, more active. Get over yourself, humble yourself, go coach, go mentor. Man, maybe you know how to play guitar. I don't know how to play guitar, but maybe you do.
Right.
And so you teach your kids how to play guitar, and maybe you teach them guitar lessons for $10 an hour or whatever. Like, well, that's not
Yeah.
going to make me any money. It's not about the money.
Right.
It's about serving your family and serving the kids in the community. Like, find a way to get more involved with our young men and young women. 'Cause Lord knows it. They need it more than I think they ever have.
You got that right. Where do you want guys to go, man, if they want to check out, to learn more about you, Order of Man? I mean, we'll sync it all up, but is there anywhere you want to tell them directly?
Yeah, two places. You can check out the Order of Man podcast wherever you're listening to this one. And then you can go to orderofman.com. That's our headquarters and our home base, and you can learn about all the things that we're doing over there.
That's awesome. Definitely check that out, guys. That is a go-to for your host here. I listen to Order of Man every week. Love the episodes. Ryan, is there anything else you'd like to share today, my friend?
That's it, man. This was a great conversation. We went through a lot, and man, great questions, great conversation. Really excited about what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. You're an inspiration to me, and I learn from you every week. So thank you, sir.
My honor. My honor.
You wouldn't jump in a boxing ring and expect to win without training, right? So why do you think you can win the battle against Satan without putting in the work? For the Christian man, it starts with knowing Scripture in your heart. To help you out and get started with your training, we created a free guide of 10 scriptures you need to fight like a lion. Go grab this free resource, and I'm going to come alongside of you in a series of personal and engaging messages designed to challenge and help you grow. So get equipped today with scripture that will help you fight the battle you're in. Visit thelionwithin.us to get started today. That's thelionwithin.us to unlock this free guide you need to fight like a lion. All right, guys, that was a powerful conversation from Ryan Michler. I'm going to tell you what, he's somebody I literally learn from him every week, guys. So this is a conversation. I know he unpacked a ton here. We talked about, how to show up and be a father for our sons. What does it look like in the church? What does it look like from an education standpoint? Tons of stories and insight and wisdom that he gave us just to be able to step up and to lead our families the way that we are called. We need to really lean in, guys. There's no one else that's going to lead our sons except you. You have to step up. You have to show them. If we're going to make them from sons to men, guys, conversations like this with people like Ryan Michler is what it's all about. Again, I can't believe we were able to do this. The Older Man, highly encourage you guys to check that out. He has great conversations week in, week out. I learned a ton from Ryan. It was awesome just to get to hang with him and to be able to support and serve him. So guys, again, thank you so much. So the question this week, what does sovereignty look like? How do you define that sovereignty? When you think about that in your life, it should mean something. It should mean something, guys. So again, if you like this conversation today, share it with somebody. Share it with a brother out there. They need to hear this type of conversation. They need to have this type of messaging poured into their life. This is powerful. This is inspirational. So guys, don't just sit on this one. Share this one out. I would highly encourage you to connect with Ryan as well on the socials and connect with us on the socials as well too. We'll be out there. We're trying to give you guys good information, good encouragement every day. So go check out thelionwithin.us. We have tons of resources there. We have courses available. We have ebooks available. We have blogs. Guys, it's all there to serve you. It's all there to help you be the leader you're predestined to be. As a Christian man, we know Satan is pushing back against you. He's pushing back against me. He does not want the line within us to be successful. But I can guarantee you one thing. The way you guys are listening, the feedback we're getting, we have momentum. And in conversations with people like Ryan, that is where it's all at. And we're just going to keep leaning forward. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep putting on that armor of God every day to serve you. So I pray this did serve you well. Give us a rating, write a review. All those things help, guys. Seriously, they do make a difference. So if you want to help, go check that out. Come back on Friday. We'll wrap everything up for a fun Friday episode. I think we'll try to tie everything together. I got some really good tips that we're going to be able to pull. I got from my conversation with Ryan, as well as just off the air conversations with him, that I think will serve you guys well. So get after it this week. Have some fun. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stand up, serve. Let's step up and let's be the men we're called to be. Let's lead our sons. And look, if you don't have a son like me, I don't have a son right now, but I have opportunities out there to serve other young men to help them grow in their walk. So get after it, guys. Unleash the lion within.